Well, good morning, everybody. My name is James Pasternak, Councillor, and I'm the Chair of the North York Community Council. The clerk has confirmed that we have quorum, and I'd like to now call meeting 22 to order. Welcome, everybody. The meeting is being held using the city's WebEx technology, with members of council participating by video conference. City staff are also connecting to the meeting by video conference. As City Hall remains closed, the public continues to participate electronically and can watch the meeting streaming live at YouTube at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. Because we're meeting remotely, we ask your patience with any delays on technical issues. We currently have people registered to speak who have been connected to the meeting by audio. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting North York Community Council page at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. Members, this is a paperless meeting. The city clerk has provided all agenda materials via CMP, the clerk's meeting portal, including any confidential materials. Clerk's IT staff will be available remotely to participants to help with your devices. I'd like to remind staff to keep their mics muted with their videos turned off unless they need to answer questions or speak to the committee. This will make it easier for me as chair and for those watching on YouTube to observe members as they participate in the debate and vote on items. As part of each agenda item, I will ask members to raise their hand or unmute their mic if they wish to question staff or speak. I will then create a speakers list and will call on members when it is their turn to speak. When voting on an item or motion, I ask that members ensure that they turn on their video, if applicable, and raise their hand to indicate their vote. To ensure that I can see all members, I will ask that you keep your hands raised until I have reviewed all members. Members, I want to remind you, you must still submit and approve your motions by email, and staff are available at nycc@toronto.ca to help with motions. Although we were meeting in different locations and meeting remotely today, the Community Council would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississauga of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, Haudenosaunee, and Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse nations, First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississauga of the Credit. Are there any declarations of interest in the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you do have an interest, please raise your hand or unmute your mic and indicate the item number and the nature of the interest. I do not see any. Next, we need a motion to confirm the minutes from our last meeting on January 13th, 2021. Moved by Councillor Robinson. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We have, I believe, 4 new items that we will add to the agenda. And can I have a motion? They've been circulated, I believe, through CMP electronically. Could I have a motion to add them to the agenda?
So moved, Councillor Carroll.
Councillor Carroll, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So let's run through the agenda of untimed items. There aren't that many. So item 6, preliminary report, zoning amendment application 4700 Bathurst Street. That is mine. I'm going to hold that down. I'd like to share a few words. Item 22.7, preliminary report, official plan amendment 4926 Bathurst Street. I can move the staff recommendations. That is for community consultation. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And 1875 Steeles Avenue West. I'm going to hold that down for a couple of minutes. I'd just like to make some comments on that as well. Item NY 22.9, preliminary report, zoning bylaw amendment and rental housing demolitions at a series of addresses on Yonge Street. Councillor Cole.
I'd like to hold that down. Councillor Cole.
Okay, Councillor Cole. 22.9 is held down. 22.10 is held for speakers. That's Councillor Robinson. 22 11, that is Councillor Filion. That is also held for speaker. 2212, preliminary report, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications 5051 to 5061 Yonge Street. Councillor Filion.
Yes, I'll move the staff recommendations.
Okay, staff recommendations moved on item 12. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Item 13, preliminary report, official plan amendments, zoning bylaw amendments, 5203 to 5215 Yonge Street and 11 Parkview Avenue. Councillor Filion.
I'll move staff recommendations.
Okay, staff recommendations moved. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 2214, parking amendment, William Cragg Drive. That is mine. I'll move the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 2215, lane designation, one-way traffic lane, northbound right turn. Buses accepted, Bathurst and Finch Avenue. It's a northbound, so it's on, okay. Councillor Filion? I think you're muted. Oh.
Staff recommendations.
Okay, staff recommendations moved. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Designation of fire routes. This is 2216, Ward 6 and 18. Series of streets here. Councillor Filion, did you want to move the recommendations?
Sure, I'll move that.
Okay, 16 moved, designation of fire routes and amendments to Chapter 880, fire routes 20, 22, 26, 28, Olive Avenue and 31 Tippett. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 2217, appointments to Willowdale Business Improvement Area Board of Management. Councillor Filion.
Yes, I have a motion. And while we're waiting for that, this is all very good news. This is the first ever BIA on this section of Yonge Street, and couldn't be coming in a more timely manner, just with the need for setting up the outdoor patios and just getting the businesses there really moving along during the pandemic. So we have already had a resignation since the time that the board was selected. So this is deleting the name of the person who has resigned and replacing it with another name. And then there's a second motion. Madam Clerk, does clerk want to deal with them separately? There's the second motion. So there were two very strong members of the steering committee with excellent skills who weren't elected to the board, but if there are further vacancies, then they would be very appropriate to consider for filling those vacancies. So this is just to advise the BIA of that.
Right, honorable mentions. Okay, so
Yes.
we have two mentions, motions from Councillor Filion. If we can put the first one on the screen. Amend recommendation 2. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And the second motion. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. and the item is amended. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. The last untimed item here is 2223, proposed speed rate reductions on Lawrence Avenue East and York Mills Road. It's Councilors Robinson and Deputy Mayor Minnan-Wong.
I'm happy to move it if Councilor
Yeah.
Robinson's okay.
Let's move it.
Your agreement? Okay, great.
Yeah, 100%.
All those in favor of moving the staff recommendations? Opposed? That is carried. Now, I know there's some time constraints for a couple of our members, so we can go to new items. I believe that Councilor Carroll and Councilor Robinson have some time constraints, so let's try and deal with their items. 2224, inclusion in the City of Toronto's Heritage Register, 19 Plimbridge Crescent. Do we have any speakers on that? No? We're good? Councilor Robinson?
So I would like to move staff recommendations.
Okay, staff recommendations moved on item 24, inclusion in the City of Toronto's Heritage Register, 19 Plimbridge Crescent. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next one is assumption of services. This is 2225. Councillor Fillion, assumption of services, 238 to 258 Finch Avenue East, North 88 Developments, Inc.
Yeah, I'll move the staff recommendations.
Okay, staff recommendations moved on item 25. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Item 26, Shepherd Avenue East Planning Review Status Report. Councillor Carroll?
Yes, I think the motion is probably about to be put on the screen. It's that the Shepherd Avenue East Planning Review Status Report. I'm requesting that City Planning provide a status report to Council May 2021, or Community Council, I should say. I note that this review was actually due at the end of 2019. It's based on a motion that Council adopted just before the election, our most recent election, and it was to be done by the end of 2019. It fell a little behind, and then COVID threw it even further behind. There was difficulty. It was decided there needed to be a consultant added to the mix, and COVID constrained that and constrained our own staff. Since then, they've also been inundated with actual planning in the area. And so what we want is to give a status report to the community, because the community would very much like to see the results of this review of the policies within the Shepherd Avenue secondary plan. And so moving this motion today ensures that there will be a report on the agenda, giving them progress thus far and something that they can speak to it if they so desire.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Carroll. Any other speakers on the item? Any questions for staff? Councillor Carroll, would you like to move the recommendation?
Yes, I'm hoping Council will support the motion.
All right, everyone seen the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So the last walk-on item is, it's mine. Item 27, admittedly, it came in the last minute. It's written by staff. It's just a very crucial no stopping prohibition at Bombay and east of Avenue Road in Bedford. We're directing staff to investigate the need there. We have some serious problems with tow truck wars. So this was a recommendation by parking enforcement. We had a town hall with police and parking enforcement. This was a recommendation to move forward with this. This is an investigation only. Want to put it on the screen so everyone can take a look at it? All right, we're just asking staff to study the issue. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So now we can go back to our 9:45 timed item, 22-1, request for direction report, 4050 Yonge Street. Councillor Cole.
Yes, if I could ask some questions of staff.
Sure, staff to the floor. Go ahead, Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Councillor Pasternak. Just in staff, in terms of the history of this site, this was previously owned by the TTC, was it not? The whole site, parking lot, etc.
That is correct, Councillor. Through the chair.
When was it declared surplus?
TTC had originally intended to develop it as an office building, and the date in the report of when it was actually declared surplus would have been around 2010.
So it was declared surplus back then. Can we find out, some residents have asked, the cost, what the TTC sold it for back in 2010?
Yes, we can check into that. I'm not sure what the cost was.
Okay, now, this is not the original application for development, is it?
No, it was originally proposed for a mid-rise redevelopment, including a office and hotel component.
And was that, where did that end up in the process, this original application for the mid-rise and hotel?
It was approved, and the applicant subsequently decided not to pursue that development. They had indicated to us that there wasn't a market for the office component of the redevelopment.
So they were approved originally, but then they didn't pursue it. And then they came back with this proposal?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Now, this is at the appeal tribunal, the LPAT, is it not right now?
Yes, that is correct.
So it's there right now. So another question is that there's a mediation coming up on this site, or is it not? Where does it sit at the LPAT?
We have a pre-conference that is being scheduled. We have not been requested to participate in mediation at this point.
So it's just a pre-conference that is coming up, right? And I think it's coming up on the 12th of March or something?
Yes.
Okay, pre-conference. And are there other parties besides the city and the applicant who will participate at the pre-conference?
Yes, there's a group of neighborhood associations, both within Ward 8 and Ward 15, that would be parties to the hearing.
Okay. In terms of some of the questions that keep coming up, has the TRCA, Toronto Region Conservation Authority, Has it signed off on this application? Does it have any objections any longer?
There were revisions requested to the application, which have been reflected in the most recent resubmission on the application. The Toronto Region Conservation Authority, I believe, is satisfied at this point that we don't have any further requests for revisions.
Yeah, because I remember that was one of the questions that was raised at the public meeting. So there was a letter from the TRCA, I think, basically saying that their requirements had been met. I guess that's a summary of that letter. Is that not right?
That is correct.
Okay, in terms of the other issue that comes up, in terms of the old talked about so-called North York bylaw restricting height at this site. Could you just try and clear that up?
Yes, the history of the property is that previous zoning permissions spoke to heights not breaching the ridge of the Hogs Hollow Valley. Through revised policies and zoning bylaw consolidation, those planning framework languages were not carried through. There is currently site and area specific policy 90 that applies to this property as well as other properties in the area. It is quite general. It does not have that zoning or policy protection in terms of not breaching the height of the ridge.
Okay. Councillor Cole, that was your last question.
Yeah.
No, Councillor Cole, you're well over 5 minutes. Councillor,
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Cole. Councillor Robinson?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I guess my questions are related also to the top of bank issues. We've heard many times about these policies that were set. I'm not sure it's the neighbor's problem that they weren't carried into the new mega city, but they should have been, and it was an oversight. So my question is related to policy 90 and the limits that were set. And I guess it was supposed to be 163.6 meters above sea level. What was this policy intended to protect? What was the concept behind the policy that was in place and the new policy that is currently in place, the site and area specific policy?
Through you, Chair, the policy was intended to keep the heights of buildings low so that they would not breach the views across the valley. And the existing built form in the area is mid-rise. We have a combination of residential and office buildings in the area that do not breach the ridge. The intent was not only from a built form perspective to make sure that we didn't have a pop-up above the ridge, but also the intent was to respect the character of the area, and the character was very much intended to be mid-rise redevelopment.
So this is clearly not mid-rise.
We have a proposal for a 35-story tower at the west end of the property and 21 stories at the east end. It is clearly not mid-rise redevelopment.
So those policies are in place to protect the sight lines across the Don Valley from top of bank to top of bank. That's the concept.
That was the historical policy context, yes.
Okay, and without dwelling on this too much, the current site-specific policy 90, as I referenced earlier, it still is in play. That is a tool.
Yes, that is correct, and we'll be using that at the LPAD.
Okay, and what are your comments on the height, massing, density, setbacks, step backs, the size of the tower floor plate?
We have several issues with the massing and the built form on this application. The property is quite large. There's a large tower separation between the two higher components on the property. What we would like to see is For the easterly part of the development, we would like to see development which is more respectful to the one-to-one relationship of Yonge Street. And so that would involve a lower form. The western portion of the property, could there be a higher element? That's something that we're reviewing because of the large size of the property and the distance it is separated from other properties. That is something that we'll be testing and working on an appropriate built form, which is definitely lower than 35 stories.
And just the disruption to this area that's sensitive environmentally, I have to say I'm very surprised this was not kicked to the curb at the onset. It should have been, but the implications on the Don River, a lot of people who, on my ward who live along the Don River are very concerned about the implications to the Don River. I know you're not the TRCA, but I just wondered if you can speak to that issue of the environmental sensitivities on this site, particularly I would say west of the built form.
Directly to the west is the Don River Valley land with the Don Golf Course. There are policies required in terms of top of bank and setbacks from top of bank, which the applicant has addressed. We have to work through some detail in terms of what form of amenity and or walkways that may occur around the buildings. That is a key component in terms of making sure that we have a proper site organization.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Any other questions for staff? No? Any speakers on the item? Councillor Cole?
Yes. Well, obviously, I'm going to support the recommendation of staff that they oppose this at the appeal body, the OMB LPAT Land Development Tribunal, whatever it's called. I think it's got 3 names now, whereby the city will send our planners and solicitors to argue that this is not appropriate for the location for many of the reasons already mentioned by our staff. Just want to mention a couple things here that should be considered. Unfortunately, despite this being on a very sensitive part of the Don River, the upper Don, the west Don, which actually part of it is in my ward, but then most of it is in Councillor Robinson's ward. And as she said, it's a very sensitive area for that reason alone. Unfortunately, the Toronto Region Conservation Authority, who has been established to protect lands in and around, our rivers especially, green areas, has signed off on this, which I found very surprising, where they have had no objections to this development. And remember, it's ironic that this was supposed to be a mid-rise development site, and we've got 35 stories on the west portion, and then we have the 25 on the east portion of this land, which was publicly owned, 21 stories, excuse me, and 35, which was publicly owned. It's unfortunate because, as you know now today with our policies of the city, if there are public lands, we always look at the affordable housing component before we sell it off to developers. But that was 10 years ago. And so that horse has left the barn, unfortunately. So we've got a privately owned development site, and they proceeded to try and maximize their money invested in this property through this pretty significant development, which is quite precedent setting for the Four Corners here. There's nothing this massive on this site. And as Councillor Robinson recalls at the public meeting, the applicant basically their rationale was that since it's on a subway station, the province has basically given them the green light and encouraged them to build great densities and higher densities. So we went from mid-rise up to 35 and 21. And this is a reoccurring pattern everywhere. Wherever there's a subway station, that now I think within 500 meters of a subway station, essentially development applications are going higher and higher, in some cases doubling. We'll see another application I have further on today. You'll see even 65 stories. So that's the challenge we have here. And that's why I think it's important for our staff to be there at the tribunal, arguing on behalf of the city and the residents who think this is not appropriate. And as I mentioned at the public meeting we had, is that this rationale of building whatever densities you want at subway stations becomes especially problematic on Yonge Street, where pre-pandemic levels just made most of the stations on Yonge Street very, very challenging in terms of the passenger load, the crowding up platforms. I mean, you have to wait for 6 subway cars to get on the Yonge and Eglinton line. At Lawrence, you have to wait. So if you load more people onto the subway, which becomes the rationale for having densities, you know, they're going to be jam-packed, hopefully, when COVID moves on. But as you know, right now it's we don't have a problem because of the various COVID issues. But so this is the challenge we face on Yonge Street. As you know, between Councillor Robinson and myself, we must have about 30 of these applications taking place and increasing day by day. And
Councillor Cole, Councillor Cole, you're well over 5 minutes.
Sorry, I know we have a long agenda, so I'll have to wrap up.
We have a long
Thank
agenda,
you.
and 2 of our councillors have urgent items that they're trying to get done. So, are you done?
Thank you, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry to delay.
No, it was a very moving speech. I just couldn't, we just can't listen to the whole thing. Councillor Robinson.
No time, we must move on. Okay, thank you.
So shoot me, like what? Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councillor Cole. And you know you have my full support on this application. My residents on the east side of Yonge are very, very concerned. We've had hundreds of emails. I haven't seen this level of engagement in a long time. It's quite unsettling what's happened here. I feel this file should not be before us. And I just want to thank the Ward 15 residents who have been very engaged, the York Mills Valley Residents Association, the St. Andrews Residents Association, and Young Ridge Homeowners Association. So there's a long history on this site. It goes back to the days of Karen Stintz. It's actually a 10-year-old file as far as I'm concerned. It could be longer. Bill Toronto was involved, as Councillor Cole indicated, so was the TTC. And at one time there was talk about the TTC headquarters going there, and there was a lot of opposition to that. And I think maybe that was a huge blunder in reflecting back now, because the TTC at Davisville, for those of us who have been there, and most of us have, is just jammed. Like, they're all over the city. So in hindsight, it might have been a good decision at the time, and that idea was kicked to the curb. But I'll tell you, when this was a 7-story building, there was huge opposition to it. Followed by that, it was a 9-story hotel that never seemed to really launch. Sat there forever. We all walked by or drove by or cycled by seeing the signs. It feels like there was a bit of waiting out of the clock, but now we're facing a 35 and 21 story building with unbelievable height density inappropriate setbacks and stepbacks, and the tower floor plate. The height and density are simply inappropriate and just out of character with the neighborhood. There's no buildings in the vicinity that even come close to this, not a single building that even come close to this. And I talked a lot, I won't repeat it, about the site area specific policy 90, but there was a promise made to these residents that they would protect the sight lines across the Don Valley from the top of Bank. So, and that goes back to Mel Lossman. So I just, I want to bring up two quick things. One is the TRCA. I can't believe this. I was part and parcel of the discussions about protecting the lands west of this building. They're extremely sensitive. So I don't know how this has just got a thumbs up. I'm a little bit worried about that, what I'm hearing today, because hours were put into, and Bill Toronto was handling this file, hours were put into that environmental piece and the impacts on the Don River, and just complete sensitivity. So I'm very worried about that. And then also I'll play on what Councillor Cole said. I talked to residents that live in the Yonge Eglinton area last week, and pre-pandemic, pre-COVID, to get on the subway, they were traveling north from Eglinton to Lawrence to York Mills, getting on at York Mills to go south downtown to work. So I used to say what Councillor Cole said, 3-4, you wait 3-4 trains. Now people are actually going north to come south. So this is not happening during COVID, obviously, but we expect everything to normalize and that to happen again. So I'm just laying that out there because it was an interesting comment someone said to me in the last week. And I just want to again thank Councillor Cole for his hard work on this file, and to the city planning staff for this report. They've done a great job under in a very difficult situation. And I want to thank all those involved, including all the community and the neighborhoods that have stepped up and engaged fully on this application. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Councillor Robinson. Any other councillors to speak on the item? No? Councillor Cole, did you want to move the recommendations?
Yes, I'm moving the staff recommendation to basically go to the appeal tribunal, LPAT, and oppose this application.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Item 22.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
It's Councillor Carroll. I'm sorry to ask the indulgence of council, but given my time conflict and that there are no speakers to my item number 5, I wonder if I might proceed with that deferral motion.
I'd be happy to alter the agenda for that. 22.5, refusal report? No.
I really appreciate that. If the clerks could put the motion that I submitted on the screen. I'll just speak to it quickly. I'm moving a deferral to continue speaking with the applicant. I won't read the whole thing out. It's on the screen now. But I want to thank the previous councillors for setting the context, because well, this too is a refusal report. This is not an application that has gone to LPAT yet. And I really believe we have the ability, city planning and the applicant, to come up with something, because we aren't dozens of stories apart, which is the case in the previous applicant. We're a couple of stories apart, and a few reports, engineering, et cetera, apart. And I really think that because provincial legislation does not work in our favor any more than it did before, but less so today. TRCA, this is not a ravine site, but TRCA doesn't have the role that it had anymore, given ministerial zoning orders. LPAT seems to be intensifying all over the place. This is a tower renewal type of application on a tower in the park site. But it's a tight site. And while a lot of work has been done and revisions to get close to where we need to go, there's still some work to do. And so it's an unusual step, but rather than support refusal today, I'm asking that it be deferred and that staff report back in May Community Council. If I was to contradict refusal today, staff would still have to report back because there are key reports apart from heightened massing that need to be dealt with between the applicant and planning. But I really think that the planning issues, the heightened massing issues in the span of 2 more months really could be resolved such that we're able to call this something that was truly planned by the city and the applicant. Those are my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Carroll. So if we can put the motion, any other speakers on the item? No, we're good? Okay, if we can put the motion on the screen, I guess in essence it's a deferral motion. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Councillor Carroll, I know you have to go. Is there anything else we can help you out with here, or your items are pretty well done?
No, that's it. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
No, you're very welcome. Good luck with your next commitment.
Thank you.
Okay, we're back to 22.2, request for directional report, 241 Redpath. Councillor Robinson, questions for staff?
I don't think I have any questions for staff. I would like to speak on this item, but I don't really have any questions for staff. I've talked to them extensively about this file.
Okay. Any other councillors' question? Any other questions for any other councillors' question for staff? Okay, Councillor, and I don't have deputants. Councillor Robinson to speak.
Much, Mr. Chair, and I actually have a motion because I think maybe this is a little addition to the report that was maybe missed. And so you see that I'm just adding in consultation with the local ward councillor, which I've run by staff, and they're happy. In fact, they feel like it was might have been missed, as I said earlier. So that's the amendment, and I would just like to speak quickly on this, Mr. Chair. So. I just want to make sure that we're kept in the loop as this process unfolds. I do want to start by thanking Jason Brander, who is handling a massive workload in North York planning and doing an amazing job. He's a great planner, and he's done a great job on this file and this report. And of course, his manager Al. Everybody knows Al. And so I just want to say this is a frustrating application. There's a number of serious issues with this proposal related to open space and tower separation and setbacks and stepbacks. The base of the building is at 7 to 11 stories, so it's way too tall for the area. And the lot, if you saw it, you would gasp because it's postage stamp sized lot. And there simply isn't this space to build a tower of this scale. So city planning is advised that this development does not and cannot meet the tall building guidelines. And if you look on page 32, the applicant's proposing a tall building development on a site that is way too small for a tower, the height, scale, and size. So that's right there laid out on page 32. And the inadequate lot size results in an inability to achieve the appropriate tower separation, as I alluded to earlier, and the proper distances and the setbacks. So the fit and transition is a real problem of this proposed building, and it's quite abrupt. It's quite an abrupt facade and built form, and quite frankly unacceptable. So there's a lot of concern about this development. Again, it's in Midtown Toronto, bursting at its seams. No infrastructure to support what's happening at Midtown, to Councillor Cole and I. And along with all the things I've itemized, significant shadows will occur. We only have a tiny bit of green space in the northeast quadrant of Yonge and York Mills, which park staff have identified has a park deficit. It's called Redpath Park. And it's really, quite frankly, not a very nice park at all. to begin with, but now it's going to be in a gigantic shadow. The only parkette in all of that area. So I'm very concerned about this. Tenants are going to be displaced again. That's happening constantly at Yonge and Eglinton, and it's a beautiful building that will be demolished due to greed. So I'm very concerned about, again, this application. It's nonstop. Councillor Cole and I cannot keep up with the applications coming in fast and furiously in the Midtown area. And it's very, very challenging for planners as well. And it makes me think of our Midtown and Focus plan that we spent 10 years developing, thrown out by the province. So it's very unsettling. I wish the Minister of Municipal Affairs could hear these speeches and hear the cries from the public about how our policies have been gutted, even though City Council had approved a beautiful secondary plan that would have worked perfectly and created a nice neighborhood, a good neighborhood, and good planning. So I'm also frustrated for the planners, our city planners and our North York planners, because they're putting significant time and resources into a development that, again, should have been rejected from the outset. So I do not get the feel that the developer has been really working with the community or working with city planners to make any changes or to modify or adapt this. And I just want to end on one note, and that is to say, we need a director in North York. I moved a motion on it last council meeting. I don't know if there's been any traction on it, but these managers are amazing. We're so lucky, but it's not right that we don't have a director in North York. It's over a year, and I'm very frustrated by this, and there are things happening that shouldn't be happening because we don't have somebody in that capacity, because everybody's really working over, like, beyond words. The capacity is just not there anymore because people are working so hard in North York planning, and we don't have that continuity of one director. So I hope that you will join me in the chorus of saying we need a director. And these managers, thank you very much to you for all the excessive work you've been doing. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Any other speakers on the item? Councillor Cole?
Yes, I just want to support Councillor Robinson in opposing this and support some of the rationale here. I mean, the trend of building bigger and higher densities on smaller and smaller lots seems to be prevalent in both wards that Councillor Robinson and I represent, and the non-stop applications are not only extremely difficult for staff, and as said, that you don't even have a director yet, handling a continual increase in applications, very complex applications. But the challenge is that the public, the residents most affected, are still under the understanding that the City of Toronto Planning Department and the city councillors really has any control over this development. I mean, we do have an ability to examine, have public meetings, but the ultimate decisions are made at the provincial level. More and more so, as we repeated, Councillor Robinson repeated again, we had a plan in place there, secondary plan, a Midtown and Focus, 5 years of consultation by the public that, last year was ripped up by the provincial government. They said, we don't care what you said and did for 5 years. We have a better plan that basically makes the developers happy. So they got away with it. And in some ways, I don't blame the provincial government and the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. I could blame them, but they never get any of these public meetings that we have to endure. Their staff at Municipal Affairs never gets any demands placed upon them after they rewrite all the rules. So all the communications, objections, excellent deputations by community associations and so forth, it never gets heard at the provincial level. So I've been trying to find out how many communications ever go to the municipal affairs minister on his plans, and basically it's minuscule because all the complaints and suggestions and input comes to the provincial level, yet the decisions are made by the original plan put in place, OPA 405 in this case, and by the province. And then the province essentially overrules anything we decide at the city level through the OMB, LPAT, Ontario Land Development Tribunal, whatever you want to call it. They make the decisions, yet they get very little pressure put upon them to allow the residents to express their opposition and their comments. And then the most frustrating thing of all is that the residents in the area where this application is generally have accepted density after density, application after application, high rise after high rise, condo after condo. Then they're told that they're NIMBYs. I mean, there's probably more development applications been approved in the pipeline here at the Yonge and Eglinton corridor than there is in the whole city in most of the other provinces combined. If you want to combine the development applications that are in Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Quebec, Nova Scotia, we've got more development taking place in our community than all of them combined. Yet the people who live in these communities have lost their ability to basically set the rules or have a say in what they think is good for the community. And then they're told that they're NIMBYs, they're against housing development and so forth. Just come and look at the housing that's been provided and is on stream in this area. You know, take a walk along Redpath, take a walk along any streets east or west of Eglinton and Yonge Street, wherever you want. Just take a walk and tell us that we are not in favor of housing.
Councillor Cole, if you could wrap up.
That's what I want to say. Okay, take a walk, Councillor Pasternak.
Yeah, no, thank you. Councillor Cole, I will meet you and we will go for a walk, I assure you.
We will.
I have been in that
Yes,
area
we
many
will.
times, and the good people of Eglinton Lawrence are great friends. So,
And please wear a hard hat because of all the construction. It's a very dangerous area. Make sure you wear your hard hat
Yes,
and bright
no.
clothing.
I will wear a hard hat and my mittens. So, are there any other speakers on this item? No. Councillor Robinson, what did you want to move the staff recommendations?
Yes, I would move that staff recommendations. Thank you.
Oh, was there? Let's put that motion on the screen.
My quick amendment, yes.
Oh, there we go. Okay, consultant. Okay, they haven't lost your phone number, I hope. Okay.
Well, they better not.
No, sometimes staff do. Okay, so all those in favor of the amendment, or we'll take it as a package. The item as amended. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Item 22.3, direction report, 5995 to 5997 Yonge Street. Any questions for staff? I don't have any deputants listed on this item. Any questions for staff? Any speakers? Councillor Fillion, did you want to move the recommendations?
Yes, and I'll just say that this is a remarkably awful application, and so bad, I think that even the appeal body will turn this one down. So I'll move the staff recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, staff recommendations moved. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Item 22.4, refusal report, 36 to 44 Eglinton Avenue West. Questions for staff? Councillor Cole.
Yes, this application for 65 stories, just a small little building. I just want to ask some question of staff. First of all, this is a submission of an application here at Eglinton Duplex, is it not, staff?
Through you, Chair, to the Councillor Cole, yes, it is a duplicate of an original application for 65 stories. The staff recommendation and previous report was for refusal. City Council refused it. The applicant did not appeal the application to the LPAT, which was their intention within the required time. So they have resubmitted for the exact same redevelopment of a 65-story tower.
So they basically had an opportunity to take this to LPAT and object, but they did not. So what they did instead is they just reapplied. Is that what they did?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and then I guess even going back further, there was another application on this same property at Duplex in Eglinton. Was there an original one previous to these two?
Yes, the Ontario Municipal Board appealed a 39-story tower, which was a mixed-use office residential redevelopment of the property.
No, it approved, I think. Did it not approve 39 stories?
Yes, approved 39 stories.
So they were approved for 39 stories on a this very small lot again. So that was approved. And then the applicant essentially was not happy with the 39 stories they were permitted, and has now come back asking for 65 stories. Am I correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And I guess in some of the issues brought forward in the public meeting, there are a number of objections that the staff has, the community has. The first one, I guess, is the shadow impacts on Eglinton Park to the northwest. Has there been a shadow study report done on the impact of this 65 stories on the park?
Yes, there has, and there's a significant shadow impact from 9/18 to 10/18 on Eglinton Park with the 65-story tower. There's a sweep across the current playground at the eastern end of the park. Shadow sweep.
Okay, and then in terms of the access for deliveries, to service this site of 65 stories, is there adequate access in the plans whereby maintenance trucks, delivery trucks can get in and out of this building? And would they have to get in and out of this tower on Duplex?
Yes, that is correct. It also abuts the loading area, the access for the property to the north. We also have a development application across the street at 50-90 Eglinton Avenue West. So we're looking at a streetscape change on Duplex north of Eglinton to address some of the concerns that we have about truck turning movements. We're trying to widen the sidewalks and narrow the roadway so that we have less confusion in terms of pedestrian and vehicular activity in that area.
And also in terms of the setbacks and step backs, whereby there would be, not this linear vertical wall on duplex and on Eglinton. Is there adequate setbacks or step backs?
No, we have concerns about both setbacks and step backs with this proposed 65-story towers. In particular, its relationship with the residential building to the north. The upper part of the tower actually cantilevers out at its top. So heading towards that residential building, so that relationship is not satisfactory.
Also, in terms of the parking spaces, so we've got how many units in this proposal?
There are a total of 663 units that are proposed, and the total parking is 72 spaces.
So how is it possible? I mean, 72 parking spots for over 600 units. Are they going to make it a car-free building? Is that what their proposal is? Or I just don't know how this is even contemplated. 72 spots. How is that going to work?
We are in the Yonge Eglinton Center, so I think that's part of the applicant's rationale for a parking reduction. However, we have concerns about the number of parking spaces being proposed. The application is not directly connected into the Eglinton subway station, nor the proposed Eglinton Crosstown platform area, which would help from a transportation demand management perspective in terms of lowering the amount of required parking if they had that direct connectivity. But in this case, they do not. So we have, that's one of our issues, is the amount of parking intended to be supplied with this development.
So even if they were really serious about having the residents access the two subway lines that are about to go in, if they were serious about that or really had a plan here, they would have had some underground connection where residents could basically access transit and make use of the transit. So, but that is not in the plans, connecting to either one, the Yonge, Eglinton, or the new crosstown line.
That is correct. There is no connection into either the RioCan Center, the Eglinton subway station, nor the Eglinton Crosstown LRT platform area.
Then what the other question is also in terms of
Councillor Cole. Councillor Cole,
okay, sorry.
you're over
okay.
7 minutes.
Yeah.
I've
Sorry,
granted you.
I appreciate that. Okay.
Yeah, no, I've granted as much.
It's a big building, 65 stories.
I
Maybe
know,
we should
I know
double
it's,
the
I know,
time
I know it's
based
big.
on the floor. Okay, anyway.
I
thank you.
understand. I get vertigo just thinking about it. Okay.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
what would you like to do here? Any other questions for staff? Okay.
Question, please. I'll be brief. And maybe it's not a fair question, but what is the tallest building in Toronto? Number of stories. This is proposed at 65. What is the tallest? Like everybody refers to the Yonge Bloor one, right? That was built on the southeast corner at Yonge and Bloor. Is that the tallest, and how tall is that? Does anybody know?
I believe the current tallest building, excluding the CN Tower, which is a structure, is First Canadian Place, at an office building at 72 stories. We have other proposals for residential development, which are under construction, being 1 Bloor Street West. I believe they're just currently in to do a height increase beyond the height, but that we've kind of got a battle going on between what would be the highest development in the city of Toronto, but we're currently looking at proposals in the 90-story range.
Okay, but I'm speaking specifically to residential. I'm not interested in because this before us is residential. So you'd say 72? 72 is
Sep-
about the high currently. I mean, built now, or
Oh.
being built.
Okay, we have the Aura at College Park at 78 stories, and we have the Mirvish development. They're in the 80-story range. They're not under construction.
Okay. And has anything been proposed at this height at Yonge and Eglinton? I'm trying to think how tall the one is at the northeast corner of Yonge and Eglinton, the tower there.
I believe the tallest proposed is the southwest corner of Yonge and Eglinton, which is a recently received application for Canada Square. And that is 35 meters taller than the 65-story development that we're reviewing here on this site.
Okay. Thank you very much. I was just curious.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Robinson. Any other questions for staff? Any other speakers? Speakers on the item? Councillor Cole? Councillor Robinson?
Yes, I just want to support the staff recommendation of opposing this 65-story tower, which, as Councillor Robinson alluded to, is one of the highest towers being proposed out of the downtown. This will set a interesting precedent of 65 stories. And I mean, this is a postage stamp size lot. There's a small office building on the site right now. And the parking in and out of that small office building on the east corner of Duplex in Eglinton causes traffic nightmares right now. You can't get in and out of there. You can't walk to the rental building that's just to the north of there. Narrow sidewalk. And now they want to add this tower with no green space. I don't know where even dogs are going to go to pee. I mean, this is 650 units. So it is really totally out of proportion. And then again, this is part of a very, I think, alarming trend, which is gripping the whole part of Midtown, is that the developers have obviously been given this green light to go for the sky. They received 39-story approval already. Wasn't enough. They've come back for 65. This is a very, very, again, worrisome trend that's happening. So, and again, even if the lot was a big lot and there was green space and there were setbacks and there weren't shadows, none of the above. It is really totally out of place here, as much as we have a lot of development in that part of the city. This one really takes the cake, 65 stories. And then it sets this precedent because, as Al Rozowski, our general manager, just said, we now have an application at Canada Square in the south west corner of Yonge and Eglinton, where they want to go not 65, they want to go another 35 meters above the 65. So this is what is happening, is that you've got one of the most intensified areas in North America, right at Yonge and Eglinton, and we're seeing 65 to 80, 90 stories going in, it looks like. And you wonder why people are alarmed and concerned and sort of trying to find out why this is being allowed. But again, it's being allowed because we've got very strong new messages from the provincial government that it is really a free-for-all out there. Anybody that wants to apply for any kind of density height will, obviously, it has been told you can get it. Just forget what City Council says. Go to our friendly OMB LPAT. That's what they're saying. And so I just find this very, very objectionable in many, many ways. Having this kind of building without any kind of amenities, without any kind of parking, and never mind the height by itself. It's just such a small little lot. And, with all the delivery trucks that now, as in all our streets throughout the city, if you go anywhere for a walk, jog, or a drive, you see our streets are filled with Canada Post trucks, UPS trucks, non-stop truck deliveries. So if you've got 600 units plus in this building, these trucks they're going to need a full-time police officer guiding the delivery trucks in and out of this building. Right now, as I said, it's very difficult to access the small little building that's there for delivery vehicles. So when they get the garbage trucks in there and the service trucks and the delivery trucks and the moving trucks, Duplex and Eglinton is going to be an extremely challenging place to go near. So I don't think we have any choice here but to try our best, send our lawyers, send our staff to the provincial appeal body and object to this 65-story tower here at this location. So again, I appreciate all the efforts of the local ratepayers, etc. But again, this is really a challenging time given there's so many of these, and I don't know where residents associations even get the energy and the time to handle all these. And as we said before, and our staff is being flooded with these applications. And the reapplications, they already got approved for 39. Coming back for 65. I don't know where it is. Maybe if they get 65, they'll come back for 95. I don't know. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Any other speakers on the item?
Yes, please.
Yes,
I would like to
sorry,
speak,
Councillor
Mr.
Robinson.
Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't even know where to begin with this one. This is so worrisome. Between Councillor Cole and I think we have 6 or 7 items on this agenda related specifically to aggressive development. And I don't think he and I are going to stop with our messaging on this because our residents are so fed up in the Yonge and Eglinton area, it's actually difficult to articulate. They are frustrated beyond compare. And it's unsettling to watch what's happening there. And it's just an absolute abuse on this neighborhood. It's people are starting to feel like it's not a neighborhood. And Councillor Cole talked about dogs, and where do you even find a blade of grass? There is none. Certainly in my corner, northeast quadrant, but becoming more so in Councillor Cole's area. So he has my full and continued support on this. And I know he and his staff have been fighting this application very hard, and I applaud them for that and the work they've done on this, because this one is a bruiser. And it also really demonstrates how broken our planning system is. This is really telling, this one. As you've heard, City Council already refused this development in October, just a few months ago. And here we are back, as Councillor Cole just indicated, almost doubling. It's just unbelievable. Last week at LPAT, we were fighting through mediation, a 44-story building that through Midtown and Focus, City Council unanimously supported a 15-story building on Broadway. So we as a council adopted Midtown and Focus at 15 stories. And what we were battling last week and spending hours and hours, evenings, weekends on is a 44-story. I don't know the outcome of that one, and I wouldn't be able to refer to it anyway. But this week, Councillor Cole is dealing with another application at LPAT. And again, it's one that borders our 2 wards. So we try to do our best to collaborate and work together. But it's nonstop for us. It's the faucet is turned on and there's no way to even turn it back or stop it completely. It's just out of control. This proposal breaks all the guidelines we have for tall buildings in Toronto. And the thing that bothers me is the height, obviously, but they aren't even really planning to replace all the office space that they will be demolishing on site. And there's been so much talk about the lack of employment at Yonge and Eglinton in the Midtown area. We've talked about that at council for years. There was these targets that the province was supposedly hitting, and we're nowhere near on employment. So all these people coming to Yonge and Eglinton, no schools, no infrastructure. I even starting to wonder if we have the pipes, the water pipes, the sewage pipes to handle this type of capacity. And the residents literally.
Councillor Cole, Councillor Robinson, we seem to have lost audio. Councillor Robinson?
34-story building, if it's approved, and I hope it's not, the 65, how are we going to get on the subway, especially with the province extending the Yonge line? They're extending that line past Councillor Fillion's ward, north. How are we going to deal with the capacity? It's our job to plan the future of this city. That's what we're here to do. So these things really keep me up at night. I'm sure they do you too. And I just worry about the future generations, subway capacity, not having the network to support what's happening at this level. I mean, literally, as Councillor Cole indicated, this is the Wild West. It's just hey, you can apply for anything, and guess what? You're probably going to get it. So I'm not even sure why we're even involved as city councillors or city planners, because our planning processes are being completely usurped, and they're going directly to the province. So we're all just spinning our wheels here. And you can hear the frustration in my voice because I'm spending most of my evenings at planning meetings for aggressive developments that are not good planning and that don't make a stick of sense. They don't make any sense. And residents are becoming despondent because they can't spend every night at planning meetings, particularly in the Midtown area. They're just kind of rolling over because they don't have the energy, the time, the funding, the money to fight all these. So we've got to do something. I don't know what, but we need a plan because this is not right what's happening. And this Councillor Cole's application before us that we're about to vote on is the epitome of this. It literally speaks to how broken our system is.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson, and you are correct. I think what we're seeing now among councillors is the repercussions to shrinking council by 19 councillors, and the consequences that have come out of it, which are not pretty. And we're in court in a couple of weeks on that matter. Okay, any other speakers on the item? Yes.
Just really briefly, I thought things were bad in Willowdale, but I have to concede they're even worse at Yonge and Eglinton. It's just astonishing, and of course we know whose fault this is. There's a provincial election next year, and everybody who shares our frustration on that needs to recognize, how this happened. It's not, that the city has little control of the planning process anymore. The current provincial government has just let the developers and land speculators run rampant, and it's appalling, and it's part of our job to make sure that everybody knows not only what is happening, but how this all came to be.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, on a point of order, no one's blamed Mike Harris yet.
Yeah.
I can blame him for other things if you'd like long-term care homes, if we want to talk about that.
I believe the problems
We can also
predate.
blame Doug Ford for all the jobs that he's been creating.
Well,
No,
okay,
no,
let's
we're not
not get
gonna
into a
do that.
partisan debate, but I think we can all agree that,
We already have. That ship has sailed.
well, maybe so, but I would say the problems predate the current government. I don't want to remind my colleagues what has happened under every political stripe at the province in recent decades regarding planning, and OMB folly was long before this current government. So let's. It's an institutionalized.
Mr. Cole was in the legislature during that time, I think.
Yeah, we got rid of the OMB, and you guys brought it back.
Okay,
Bigger and
okay.
stronger than ever.
No. This is supposed to be a friendly meeting, nonpartisan. Are we ready to vote on this item? Councillor Cole, did you want to move the staff recommendations as a refusal report?
Yes, I'll move the staff recommendation. to
Okay, we're voting.
oppose, this,
There were no motions on this item, right? Okay, so it's 22-4, 36 to 44 Eglinton Avenue West. It's a refusal report. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Now, Councillor Robin, I know you have an urgent appointment to get to. Do you want to deal with? I see 2210 is here.
Mr. Chair, I'm actually good till 1 p.m. I just was worried this because of the number of developments that this would go past. So I'm fine till 1 p.m. Thank you, though.
Because you've got.
If it goes past 1 p.m., then I will be in trouble.
Well, I want to make sure we're okay. You've got a couple of items here, 2210, 1466, 1500 Bayview, and you've got something at 2365 Bayview, separate, it's a timed item.
Yeah, they're all timed except 2210.
All right, so with an hour to go, we'll if those aren't done, we'll vary the agenda, we'll go right to them. So I think the next one on the agenda is one I held, item 22.6. Although, you know what, we could go to your timed item, Councillor Robinson, 2365 Bayview?
Sorry, what? Can you give me the number, the actual agenda number?
18.
Oh, you know what I'd like to do with that one is just move to defer that for a month, just because there's some clarity issues, some clarification issues. Could I just defer that one till next month?
Okay, so a motion to defer 2218, 2365 Bayview Avenue is on the floor. All those in favor of deferral? Opposed? That is carried. Councillor Robinson, we can also do probably your 1031.
Okay.
It's a demolition at 613, but there is a deputant.
Well, I'm going to, I don't know if the deputant still wants to speak because I'm going to move staff recommendation number 2 to approve the application to demolish the vacant residential dwelling unit. So without any conditions. So if the deputant still wants to speak, given that I'm going to move staff rec 2 to approve the application to
Who's
demolish.
coordinating the deputants?
Oh, no, we're good.
Is he on the line?
I believe so.
Okay. We do have that deputant on the line.
Okay.
Brenda Lee? Dr. Brenda Lee?
Yeah. Dr. Lee.
Yes?
You're welcome to speak, but I'm approving your request, so we fully support what you're doing there.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's just so council understands it's a weird rule where you just have to. It's kind of a fake demolition. They're not actually demolishing the building, but they have to demolish the. I don't even know how to explain it, but they just have to demolish the position so that she can have her business at the top and the main level.
Miss,
She's an eye doctor, so it will be
Yeah.
it will be an eye doctor.
okay, Miss Lee, are
Forget
you,
the term, optometrist.
are you content with the councillor's motion, or did you still want to depute?
No, yes, I agree. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lee. Any
So
other?
I would move staff recommendation 2.
Okay, staff recommendation 2 is moved on, for 613 Mount Pleasant Road. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Now, we can also, oh, it's a tree. Okay, we're going to hold down item 22, because they usually take a little longer. We'll come back to that in a few minutes. So, Councillor Robinson, I think there's one more item of yours that we'll jump to when we get a little further down the agenda. I held down 22.6. Okay, so mine is the next item. It's item 22.6, 4700 Bathurst Street. Obviously, I just wanted to let the community know that all we're approving here, I'm not asking questions of staff. I'm just going to just speak for a minute unless anyone else wants to speak on this item. So we have had a pre-application community consultation. There is widespread opposition to this application, even though it is only 9 stories. It sits on an iconic site that formerly housed the National Council of Jewish Women. It was their Toronto headquarters. Many transformative events occurred in that building, many charity events and other great things happened. The local community is very concerned on both sides of Bathurst Street. Councillor Fillion, I should advise you that we're getting calls from your residents as well about the 9-story application. So we did have a pre-application meeting, and I want to assure the community nothing has been decided. There's a long way to go on this. There's been a heritage application put in, and at the same time, I have suggested to the applicant that they might want to consider townhomes on this site, because it would mirror the townhomes on the other side. So all we're doing today, members of the community, is directing staff to set up a community consultation. Nothing has been decided. There's a long way to go on this file. I share all of your concerns about it, the stability of the land, the heritage status of the building, the access to Bathurst Street. These are major concerns that have to be addressed in the coming months and potentially years. So the conversation continues. We promised we would have a more consultation, and that's exactly what today's motion does. It does not approve this in any way. It merely sets a process forward for more discussion. So I'd be happy to move the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Opposed?
Speak briefly.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not sure what you were going to be moving, but yes, there is a lot of concern on my side of Bathurst about this application, and I expect the consultation meeting will be well attended by residents from Ward 18. This is just the bad application meeting. I've never seen so many really bad applications on one agenda. It's quite remarkable. So I share all of your concerns, Councillor Pasternak, and my residents share your residents' concerns. So I'm sure we'll all be at the community consultation meeting. Thank you.
Yes, no, thank you.
Point of order, Councillor Pasternak, as chairman, you've got to, blend in some good applications with some of these bad ones. Just some suggestion going forward based on what Councillor Filion just said. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you for the advice, Councillor Cole. We will be hunting for some good applications in the future. Is there someone who wants to move the, usually I'd have my vice chair move these, move the recommendation to consult. Is there?
I'm happy to move it if you'd rather not, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, so I'd rather not. But I think consultation is a good thing, and this doesn't approve it in any way. So I think that's fair enough. So Councillor Cole is Councillor Filion is moving item 6, 22-6, 4700 Bathurst Street. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. The next one is also mine, 22-8. Cole, and Councillor Cole, another bad application. And I do have some questions for staff, unless any other councillors do. So this property is adjacent to a major pharmaceutical manufacturing facility. Is that correct? Certainly, that's what I see here, and that's one of the major concerns.
Sorry, Councillor. Are you speaking to 4926 Bathurst or?
No, 1875 Steeles.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, it is adjacent or in close proximity to Sanofi Pester.
And certainly worldwide vaccine manufacturing. Admittedly, this plant is not currently producing the COVID vaccine, but it is producing vaccines, manufacturing vaccines worldwide. What concerns have they expressed about this application?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Sanofi has reached out to Economic Development and Planning to express concerns about the impacts of residential development in proximity to their use, which is not uncommon for any industrial use to see an intensified residential use in proximity. And staff share those concerns and have asked the applicant to prepare reports to that effect to study what potential impacts there may be on Sanofi's certificates and ability to operate.
So describe for me the height of these buildings. I think, is it 39 stories? Is it?
Through you, sorry, Councillor? Were you going to say?
Yeah, is it the height of these buildings? Is it 39 stories, 38 stories?
Yes.
Yeah.
39, yes. Through you, Mr. Chair, 39 stories.
No, I don't know of a subway.
There's also a second 38 story.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. And I don't know of a subway stop near there. How unusual would it be to have this kind of density that's really not near a subway stop?
Sorry, Councillor, you were breaking up for me, but I think that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm having some audio issues here. So it's not. These are very high towers, but it's not near a subway stop. How unusual is it that you would get this kind of density with no high-level transit?
I think it depends, Councillor. I mean, certainly we have towers in many areas of the city. comparable heights that are not near a subway station. You can point to those. Steeles is priority bus service, and there's some taller development on the other side of Steeles approved in York Region and Vaughan. That said, Councillor, I think the context is something we are looking at. This would be a significant amount of height and density being introduced into the area. It is definitely invites a new context, an analysis of a new context, and we are reviewing that.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Okay, I'll just speak briefly. On a day where there's bad applications, this is one of the bad applications as well. This kind of density that is not even anywhere near high-level transit, next to a vital pharmaceutical manufacturing plant, and next to TRCA lands. It has all the ingredients of an application that is inappropriate and that has really should not be going anywhere other than this community consultation. There is a worldwide pandemic, and admittedly, Sanofi Pasteur is not manufacturing the COVID vaccine out of the site, but we don't know what the future will bring. They certainly are manufacturing considerable products for worldwide use, saving millions of lives. It would be very foolish of us to approve any kind of development that could impede their operation to save lives worldwide. So I don't know. I really can't support this. I really haven't heard much. There's another application just to the east, just to the west of this building. 2 applications will create traffic mayhem, could affect TRCA lands, and could affect the ability of one of the premier vaccine manufacturing plants in the country to operate. So it's this in essence is not supportable. But all we're doing today is scheduling a community consultation. I think residents have a right to know what this application is all about. City staff have a legal obligation to present it, and that's all we're approving today. We're not approving a road path forward. We're not approving any components of this application, which is very problematic. Does anyone else want to speak on the item? Okay, the staff recommendations are moved to organize a community meeting. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, 22-9.
Question of staff?
Yes, Councillor Cole.
Yes, I just want to ask staff to clarify the process here. As you know, this application calls for the demolition of 12 buildings and 109 residential rental units on Yonge Street there at Bedford Park there. What is the process here in terms of processing their application for demolition?
Through the chair, you're asking about the demolition, including the existing rental units on the property?
Yes. What is the process there? When does that start, and how does that approval process go in conjunction with the application process?
Okay. Well, we're well away from any demolition occurring. Yes, we're well away from any demolition that could be occurring on the property, given that there are rental units on the property. There's a dual stream that would need to be followed. There is a rental replacement application, and there's also the rezoning application to be dealt with. There would be a meeting with the existing tenants on site to deal with rental replacement issues. To my knowledge, there's been no demolition permit that's been applied for on this particular property. We're at the very beginning of the planning process. For demolition to occur, we would need several things in place. We would need an approved zoning bylaw amendment to be put in place. There's a site plan application to be dealt with, of course, on this property as well. And then there's the rental replacement conditions to be worked out on the property.
So that application will not, for demolition of the rental units, will not proceed for a while yet.
That is correct.
In terms of the property to the west of this application, abutting Blessed Sacrament Elementary School, there's a sort of a laneway there. Just to clarify, who owns that laneway property to the rear of these stores that exist there on Yonge Street?
It's a private lane.
Is it owned by the applicant, or is it part of the applicant's application that they would build on this?
That is correct.
So it is owned by the applicant.
It is owned by the applicant. It is
So
part of the development application.
So they own right to the border of the Blessed Sacrament Elementary School. I can't hear you.
Hello?
The lane that. So yes, sorry, Councillor, you're cutting in and
Oh,
out.
am I? The lane. Who owns the lane?
The applicant owns the lane and forms part of the development application.
Okay, the other question I had is about this application. Is there any connection in the plan? I know we discussed it months ago, but is there any connection with the development application for this condo or building, whatever it might be, purpose-built rental? I don't know it. Is there any underground connection to the subway entrance?
No, the development site directly abuts the platform for the north end of the Lawrence subway station. The current application does not include a connection into the subway station.
Okay, and in terms of, this motion calls for community consultation, the first step here to set up a meeting. Do we have to move a motion here to extend the distribution area from the usual 120 meters to 500 meters?
Yes, we're at the beginning of the planning process and we want direction to proceed with a community meeting and start the review process and involve the public through a community consultation meeting.
But
through you, Mr. Chair, sorry, I think the question was, do you need to move a motion to expand the consultation area? And you do not, Councillor. That's
No.
built in.
Yes.
That's built into the recommendations of the preliminary report.
okay, thank you very much, Julio. Okay, thank you. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
I have a question.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Cole. Councillor Fillion?
Yes, a reference was made to a laneway. I'm not terribly familiar with this site, but was that laneway at one time owned by the city?
The laneway is private. It's not currently a municipal laneway servicing
No,
the property.
The question was, did the city ever own the laneway?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fillion. Any other questions for staff? Speakers? Councillor Cole, no? Would you like to move the...
No, I'm just going to move the staff recommendation just for the set up the community consultation.
Okay. Councillor Cole is moving the staff recommendations. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Oh, yeah. No, yeah, okay. So the clerk was concerned we didn't have quorum on the vote. All those in favor, we're voting on item 9. Favor, opposed? That is carried. Item 10, we do have a speaker listed. 2 speakers listed. Is Jeff Cattell on the line?
To the chair, this is Nahom with the city clerk's office. That was Jeff speaking, but there appears to be a problem with his audio. I'll connect with the first speaker to troubleshoot if you'd like to move to the second speaker.
Yeah, James Heller.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Heller?
Yes,
Yes, thank you very much for joining us. You have 5 minutes.
thank you. My name is James Heller. I live in Leaside at 1 Burney Crescent. I've lived in Leaside at this address for over 45 years. So I know the community and the neighborhood very well. And I'm speaking to the application at 1466 to 1500 Bayview Avenue. This is the 4th in a series of new buildings that are being proposed or are being built south of Eglinton. And I call it the massification of Bayview Avenue. Essentially, a wall is going up on the west side of Bayview Avenue. There's an application, for example, in the first block south of Eglinton, running to Sudan, for a 10-story or thereabouts mixed-use development. There's a second application going up in the second block south of Eglinton from Sudan to Hillsdale. It's already in the building stages. It's about half constructed. There was a third application at 1408 to 1420 Bayview between Merton and Belloil. And that has been approved, but I don't think construction has begun as yet. That is going to be an 8 or 9-story development as well, and it's facing a heritage property. The old St. Cuthbert's Anglican Church at the corner of St. Cuthbert's and Bayview. So it has an impact on the for the religious members of the community, and as well as those people who value the heritage. Now, the new application at 1466 to 1500, the corner of Bayview and Davisville, is an aggressive application, to put it mildly. It's a 9-story building application. And looking at the drawings, I see that there is a wall, a solid wall, 9 stories high, on the Bayview side, facing a heritage property, the Garden Court Apartments across the street. The Garden Court Apartments have been a heritage site for many years. Former Mayor John Sewell used to do walking tours that included the Garden Court Apartments, and so did former Councillor Jane Pitfield. So it's well recognized and accepted and revered within our community. The application is also aggressive because it extends right up to the public sidewalks on Bayview Avenue and on Davisville Avenue. So imagine a building that crowds pedestrian sidewalks on both of those street corners, and goes up 9 stories. It's only tiered on the west side of the application so that presumably the penthouse owners can enjoy the western skies, but it's going to shadow the Garden Court apartments. And frankly, I find it insulting and disrespectful of the community. It also is incongruent because it's so high with the retail stores to the north on Bayview Avenue, which are all 1 or 2 story buildings. So all in all, it's an aggressive application that really pays little heed to the community. And finally, I just want to say that it creates what I call a deficit in the quality of life of the residential community. And that deficit is then monetized by the developer with his investment and creates a stream of profits once it's completed for the developer and a stream of tax revenues for the city. So in effect, both of the city and the developer are in a conspiracy against the interests of the residential community. And I want to draw that fact to your attention as well. Now, I've been listening to your discussion all morning, and the policies that are afflicting the whole city.
Excuse me, Mr. Heller, you're well over 5 minutes. If you could wrap up, please.
I will. Okay, that policy goes all the way back to the Harris-Eves government from 95 to 2003. The McGuinty-Wynne government inherited the policy and implemented it. And the Ford government now is simply intensifying that policy.
Okay. No, thank you. Thank you for the political history. Any questions for the deputant?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just on a point of order, all is right in the world because the deputant raised Mike Harrison. So now he's been blamed for this meeting. So we can carry on.
Thank you.
Yes, no, thank you for that point of history. Any questions for the deputant? Okay, thank you, Mr. Heller. Jeff, do we have you on the line?
Yes.
Okay.
Am I being heard?
Great, good to hear from you. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. I, like Mr. Heller before me, I appreciate the gravity of the situation that you as councillors, as our appointed, as our elected representatives are facing in Yonge and Eglinton. By comparison, our issues in Leaside probably pale in comparison. But however, everything is context. And on the west side of Bayview, as Mr. Heller was pointing out, we do have, this is the most aggressive development application to date. The mid-planning focus did allow for up to 8-story buildings, and we're seeing an application here for a 9-story building. The development application is the 4th proposal and represents the most aggressive to date. It fails to respect the height, the setbacks, the step-backs, and the angular planes that were mandated and expected for such a site. The FSI of 4.41 reflects an attempt to place an excessive amount of mid-rise structure on a lot of this size, particularly when it's not exactly in close proximity to the Leaside light rail transit station. The length of 93 meters will create a wall with a lack of differentiation, a lack of interest, it will in effect spoil that west side, which, as Jim has mentioned, is opposite the iconic Garden Court Apartments, which, quote, is a rare and exemplary apartment complex with highly crafted art moderne styling. And this proposed building is not in the same league at all. It's not a highly crafted building, unfortunately. We would like to have a better standard of design. On a minor point, the proposal does, however, plan to continue to provide the community with the retail services of a grocery store. The Value Mart there is a very well-loved feature, and we'll see if that actually happens. We would agree with the staff report and extending the community consultation. I think we'll find there's going to be a lot of interest in this application. We appreciate your consideration of our comments, and we look forward to participating in further discussions to resolve our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Any questions for the deputant? No? Questions for staff? No? On this item? Okay. Apparently, there's a third speaker on this item. Andy?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, it's not on my list. Thanks very much for joining us. You have 5 minutes.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Chair and fellow Metro councillors. My name is Andy Gort, and I'm the president of the South Eglinton Ratepayers Investment Association. The development is actually in our catchment area of Bayview to Yonge and Eglinton to Merton. And as Councillor Cole and Robinson have already expounded, we've been overwhelmed with development and construction in the Yonge Eglinton area, which is also part of our catchment. But we're finding that development is now rapidly moving east along Mount Pleasant and now along Bayview. This is the fourth, as someone mentioned already, the fourth metro is being proposed, and we wouldn't be surprised if more will be following. Our first comment is to thank the North York Senior Planner, Catherine Moore, and Section Manager, Acting Director, Al Wazowski, for what we think is an excellent preliminary report. And we wholeheartedly endorse the issues that they identified in the report. The second thing, at least is something positive, is that we welcome the desire of the landowner to retain and expand the grocery store on the main floor. We're not opposed necessarily to development at this location, but that's where the positive part stops, because we strongly object to the design of the project. And I think you've heard from both James Heller and Jeff Cattell already about it being too tall and not according to the zoning. Even the OPA 405 was approved by the province, so it doesn't comply with. There really are insufficient setbacks at Bayview, basically zero lot line to the sidewalk, and the same on Davisville. And the step backs on Bayview at the higher elevation should be increased. It makes the building look very massive. Basically, when you get to the top of the building, if you stand on the street, you shouldn't see that level anymore. And there's no step backs whatsoever on Davisville that go straight up. There's also a relaxed transition to the neighborhood to the west, the famous 45-degree angular plane. And the laneway is encumbered. There's a garage right underneath there. And there's a concern about noise infiltration because there will be commercial trucks there. Also a concern about traffic flow at Davisville and Bayview. Today there's a parking lot. Traffic comes in from Bayview and exits on Davisville. It's becoming a very busy intersection because the Sudan neighborhood is trending upwards to 17,000 people. And there is a lot of people in the Davisville apartment neighborhood that actually shop at this Value Mart. We also feel that there's a lot to be desired in the design of the building. When you consider the length at the Bayview site, and it's quite monotonous in terms of the facing and articulation. and we feel it doesn't consider the Heritage Garden Suites apartment across Bayview. We also would like to see, since it's a mixed-use zoning, that would be additional commercial institutional use of the building at the, maybe above the first floor. There could be medical offices, etc. The area is growing quite rapidly. And we would welcome an opportunity, together with the other stakeholders, to work with the developer to create a better and more satisfactory community appropriate application for this site. And thank you for the opportunity to present it.
Great, thank you very much. Andy, are there any questions for the deputant? No questions for the deputant? That's it for deputants on this item. Are there questions for staff? No questions for staff? Speakers? Councillor Robinson?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It seems that I can take the rest of the day off because these three speakers have covered it all over, covered off all the issues related to this very controversial development. So thank you very much to Jim and Jeff and Andy. And they did an excellent job in articulating the neighborhood concerns, but just the general overall concerns with this application, which is far from ideal. There's a lovely little Value Mart on this corner that has been the go-to grocery store for families in the Davisville and Leaside area for decades. We are going to lose that. That's just the beginning of a huge shift in this neighborhood. And everyone, as you've heard, they're very concerned about the precedent-setting nature of this development proposal. And I'm not going to repeat everything. Jim did a great job, as did Jeff and Andy, about talking about the heritage aspects of this and the context. And that's really what it's all about for this development, is the context. But I will just repeat that, you know, it does not provide an adequate transition from a built form perspective at all. The first and second floor of the proposed building are built, of course, right to the property line on Bayview Avenue. And the portion of the building fronting onto Davisville Avenue is built, of course, right to the property line. So that's a concern. Also, just the long massing of this building. When you see a diagram of it, a rendering, it's quite something. It kind of takes your breath away. And so that's why I'm going to, I'm not very technically inclined here, but I'm just going to hold up a piece of paper because Jeff Cattell alluded to context. And so I should do this in a more formalized way, but context, here you go. So this is what this building will look like with all these single family homes around it. You can see the transition is unbelievable of this being proposed. So it is indeed, Mr. Cattell, all about context. And this is why you've got two heavy-hitting ratepayers associations or residents associations on the west side of the street, with Andy Gort leading the charge, and on the east side of the street with Jeff Cattell leading the charge on behalf of Leaside on the east, and on the west side, Davisville Village. So we're going to put up our dukes on this one. As somebody alluded to, I don't think people fully are aware that this is happening, and it's really going to shift forever these lovely little streets that make up Leaside and Davisville Village. This kind of big Titanic being thrown into the mix. So I'll just also note, because it was funny, Andy Gort's here today, because when I was talking earlier about Midtown, and Andy represents Midtown as well, from the Residents Association, he has and his team have done, as volunteers, a lot of work on the impacts on the net transit network, particularly the Yonge line and the capacity issues. So it's funny, when we were talking about that earlier, I was thinking of Andy and referencing him, and here he is now today. So if you have any questions, they've done a lot of documentation and research on the capacity issues at Yonge and Eglinton and beyond, Yonge and Davisville and going north and south. So he's a good resource for that. So I will end my comments there, and just simply say that we need to get great turnout to the community consultation meeting that has not yet been scheduled. But I'm not even one bit afraid, because I think once word gets out that we're going to lose this Value Mart grocery store, the garden center, the lovely parking lot that was part of it, to this proposal. I think people are going to come out in droves, so I'm not worried about that. And I just want to end by thanking Jim and Jeff and Andy for your great job today in articulating the concerns and issues with this proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Any other speakers on the item? No? Councillor Robinson, are you going to move staff recommendations?
Please move staff recommendations.
Okay, staff recommendations moved. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Item 11, preliminary report 33, 37, 40, 39, 41, and 43 Center Avenue. We do have a speaker on this. Is there a Rob Gibson on the line? Mr. Gibson?
Yes, good morning.
Great, good morning. Thank you for joining us. You have 5 minutes. Are you the applicant?
Yes,
You are.
Rob Gibson. I'm the agent for the applicant. I'm with Evans Planning.
All right, okay.
Good morning to the chair and members of the committee. I just really wanted to make a very brief comment and state essentially that we agree with the report, staff report, and the recommendations. And really the reason for the deputation is that there are, a number of details that have been outlined in the staff report. And really, I just wanted to confirm and state that we're, already starting to look at the potential revisions to the plans. We're working on those details, and we really look forward to addressing those details in a revised submission in consultation with the councillor and with the community. And that's really, I think, the main comment I wanted to make. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Gibson. Are there any?
I have a question, Mr. Gibson.
Councillor Fillion?
Yes, Mr. Gibson. So the issues that are outlined in the preliminary report were all communicated to you and your client previously. So why would we have any reason to think that you're planning to listen to them now?
Well, I think what we will need to do is revise changes in terms of the drawings and the details. I think that there's a lot of those specific details on the grading that need to get worked out. I believe we will send those drawings and we'll get them revised, and hopefully we'll be able to show some of those changes, in fact, before a community consultation meeting, share them in terms of what those potential revisions are. So, if we didn't get there in the original submission, apologies, and we will work together to make those changes.
Thank you. I have a motion if there's no further questions or
all right, well, let's,
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, okay, just 1 second. Any questions for the deputant? And before you move your motion, let's see if there's any questions for staff. Are there any questions for staff? No? Okay, we can go to speakers. Councillor Fillion?
Yes, so I do have a motion. So this application, it's certainly nowhere near the scale of the other bad applications we've dealt with at this meeting, but it is nevertheless a bad application, and also, done in bad faith, in my opinion. This is one of the rare times where I thought it would be productive to engage the applicant in trying to do something really positive at a site, something different. And both the staff and I have been involved in multiple discussions, and we have not, after spending all that time, we get an application that does not reflect any of the advice that was given to the applicant. So my motion is to send it back to staff, and we'll see from what Mr. Gibson said whether the applicant intends to pay any attention to what staff are saying. And if they do, then staff can report that back. If they don't, staff can report that back as well, and we can respond appropriately.
Okay. All right, any questions for the mover? Any other speakers on this item? It's a referral back to staff. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, we're at item 19, 241 Finch Avenue East. It's Councillor Fillion. It's a demolition application, and we do have a speaker on it. Is Shenshu Zhang?
Hi. Yeah, hi, I'm here.
Mr. Zhang?
Yes.
Okay, you're the, are you the homeowner or the?
No, I'm actually the agent for the project.
You're the owner, okay, you're the agent. Okay, thank you for joining us. You have 5 minutes.
Sure. Yeah, we applied to demolish the two detached single-family houses, and we submitted a rezoning application 2 years ago to propose development with the townhouses, 8 units. So the rezoning is getting almost done. And the house is now not used. The number 241 has already disconnected with all the services. And the number 243 is still occupied by a tenant. She will move out in the summer. So that's the reason we like to demolish the two buildings and to prepare the construction of new townhouses. That is what I can see now, and if you have any questions, please let me know.
I have a question.
Okay, thank you. Are you sure he's finished? I mean, yeah, Councillor Fillion, are you sure he's finished?
Well, he sounded like he was.
Okay.
He's not.
Mr. Zhang, are you done?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yes, Councillor Fillion.
Yes, so just to clarify, the client you represent not only does not have a building permit, does not have a rezoning, does not even have a staff report yet on the rezoning. Is that all correct?
No, we have already zoning application. We have already have a staff report, and we are waiting for the final report to be tabled to the council in April.
Yes, so community council has not even yet received the staff report or considered your planning application. Is that correct?
I think you have received it, but we are preparing third submission for the rezoning.
Okay, maybe I'll just ask staff to clarify, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Phelan. Any other questions for the deputant? I don't see any hands up. Okay, questions for staff? Councillor Phelan?
So just to sorry.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just to clarify, there's not only no building permit here, there's no approval. There isn't even yet a staff report on this application. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. We've sent comments to the applicant. We're awaiting a resubmission. We have some hope that we may arrive at a resolution with the applicant, but we're not there yet, Councillor.
Okay, thank you. So, you know, this is obviously premature in the extreme. I'll move that the application be denied.
Okay, okay. So any other questions for staff before we go to speakers? No questions for staff. Okay. So Councillor Phelan, you're moving you're moving recommendation recommendation 1. It's a refusal. Okay.
Yes.
Any other speakers on the item? I don't see any hands. Okay, so that's what's before us. No amendments, just option 1, it's a refusal. All those in favor? Oh, we need someone else to turn on their video.
Mike Harris, that'll get Denzel coming. There he goes.
Yes, yeah, Mike, yeah. Okay, I think we're good now. We're back to quorum. All those in favor of the motion? And opposed? That is carried. Okay, number 20. Mr. Zhang is back. Is this one large site, Councillor Fillion? I guess so.
Yes, it's a site with
yeah.
The process requires an application for each address, I believe.
Okay. All right.
So,
Fair
thing.
enough. Mr. Zhang, you're registered to depute on 243 Finch Avenue East. Thank you once again for joining us. You have 5 minutes.
Yeah, that is I think that both the two applications should be dealt with together, because we applied for demolition for the both building at 241 and 243, and for one the development on the two lots. And as I said, we have already submitted, and I understood that the final staff report has not been sent to the council, but we have already talked with the staff for over 2 years. And by the way, the building is not usable anymore, it's not livable. So I like to suggest to the committee to approve the demolition permit.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Zhang. Any questions for the deputant? No? Any questions for staff? No? Any speakers?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So same motion. This is exactly the same. It's the same site as the previous vote. It's just a strange requirement that there be two applications.
Yes. Okay. So Councillor Fillion is moving refusal. Option 1 on the report before us. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next on the agenda, I have item 22. Application to remove a private tree, 147 Fenn Avenue, and I do have a speaker on that, Sandy Romas. Ms.
Yes, hello.
Oh, hi, Ms. Romas?
Can you hear me?
We certainly can. Thank you for joining us. You have 5 minutes.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to the appealed application to remove a private tree at 147 Avenue, which was filed in March 2020, 1 year ago. I wish to thank council for acknowledging that issues and hazards exist because of the tree in the previous council meeting by requesting more information. As a constituent, I appreciate that council are undertaking their decision seriously and listening to the reasons why this tree needs to be removed and the options considered. Bylaws are not meant to be punitive, and in the decision-making process, it is important for those of us living with mobility issues and disability to be considered. I'd like to reiterate that this application has been filed to remove a hazardous honey locust tree whose trunk is 2 to 2.5 meters from my home, with an exposed root system to foundation of approximately 30 centimeters and an exposed root height of approximately up to 20 centimeters above grade. The tree leans towards my home, and as the canopy is approximately 1/3 directly above my home. A honey locust tree is a large, fast-growing tree with aggressive surface and below-ground root systems. The root system of this particular tree impedes access and safe passage around the walkway into my yard and rear perimeter of the home. I live with disability and have mobility issues. Over the past 10 years, there have been numerous trips and falls by me, family members, and guests. Some family members, like my father-in-law, who is in a wheelchair, cannot access the yard independently or safely because of the root system and the proximity of it to my home. We have experienced dampness and some water against the rear basement wall, decreased water pressure at the rear faucets, and the grading has been altered to run towards the house rather than away from the home. We obviously can't see the roots underground, but logic and reason tells us that the nature of this tree poses an insurance liability to my home, the neighbors, and to people. It is necessary to remove the tree, as all other options considered provide only a temporary solution with and in no time will create more serious liability. They're not feasible because of building code or space requirements and are likely to kill the tree or cause the aggressive root system to be smothered, encouraging the roots to encroach upon the foundation and utilities of my home. The grading and ground cover option, the aggressive roots of a honey locust tree can extend 2.5 times the width of the canopy underground and is also known for its large protruding surface roots and aggressive deep roots. Altering the current grade by smothering the roots so that rainfall would flow away from the home would eventually cause the roots to seek deeper into the soil for nutrients and affect the foundation and utilities, or heave above the surface, recreating the issues which currently exist in the pathway. This option would not be possible because of building code accessibility and safe and space guidelines, as there would need to be at least 20 centimeters above ground cover. Digging deep into the subfloor is another option that was considered, and it would require injuring or pruning some of the roots by digging down into the base level and raising the grade and flattening out the path. Impermeable surfaces are known to limit tree growth and life expectancy due to lack of space, compaction, and lack of nutrients. Again, this solution would be a temporary fix, as the aggressive roots would eventually damage the path and likely the foundation near the utilities. It could also possibly compromise the life of the tree and kill it, having the tree or large branches fall onto my home, which could be catastrophic and cause fatalities. A honey locust tree of this size would never be planted close to my dwelling in today's planning. According to a document produced by Vineland Research, the Ontario Landscape Tree Planting Guide in 2019, large, fast-growing trees with aggressive roots that are in restricted soil volumes, are older than 15 to 20 years old, are within 2 to 3 meters of walkway, are likely to cause damage and heave above grounds. These types of trees would require a minimum setback of 6 to 15 meters from building foundations, pipes, sewers, walkways, in order to assume minimal infrastructure damage. This is obviously not the case with my tree. It would be irresponsible as homeowners to not address the hazards this tree poses and to leave it in the current proximity to my home. We did not put in this application without careful consideration and assessment of options. Band-aid or temporary fixes will not be sustainable and will likely cost more to us in the end. We would like to access and use our yard safely, knowing that whatever is planted in its place does not compromise the structural integrity of our property and utilities and limits insurance liability and mitigates risk. Thank you very much for your time and for listening once again.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions for the deputant? No questions for the deputant. Thank you very much, Ms. Romas. Questions for staff?
I would like to ask a question.
Okay, Councillor Robinson, questions for staff?
Yeah, so we talked about this at last month's North York Community Council, and it was deferred to this month in order for staff to take a second look at this and to do a better job really articulating to council their position, forestry's position. And I think also just figuring out the accessibility pieces and parts, because that's what we've heard a lot from the resident, Sandy. So could you just share with us what you've learned since the last North York Community Council meeting and any further research or study that you've done?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we haven't had any contact with the applicant since the last meeting, but I can certainly clarify the context of the application that has been submitted and perhaps do a better job of explaining how and why it's been brought by Urban Forestry to council at this point.
Okay.
Urban Forestry looks at applications in two distinct streams for residential tree removal requests. And those would be construction-related applications and non-construction related applications. For non-construction applications, we have a very limited suite of provisions within the private tree bylaw that we can use to assess an applicant's request. The main one of those is effectively whether the tree is healthy or not. This tree is unquestionably healthy in Urban Forestry's opinion. For a construction-related application, which at this time, this request is not, we can look at additional matters, many of which have been raised by the deputant, that put additional materials or information on the table. Things like, to refer to the deputant's list, things like the concern for foundation dampness, repairs to the existing walkway, whether those are feasible or not. All of those are things that we can consider in a construction-related application. However, we haven't received any of those additional materials from the applicant. And at this stage, it's effectively, what Urban Forestry has heard is effectively what council has heard. It's the verbal version of the story. If the applicant were interested in revising the application to a construction-related application and providing in writing for us to review much of the materials that she spoke about, we would look at that application in good faith and make a determination. Ultimately, it may come back to at least the ward councillor for through a posting and consultation process, and possibly back to council. At this stage, we don't have that information before us.
Clear. What you're saying is you could, we could have more information before us from the applicant that might alter the decision, or just, David, if you could just clarify that last bit of what you said.
Yeah, sure. If the applicant were to change the context of this application from non-construction to construction, Urban Forestry could consider many of the elements that she has brought forward. Now, she's brought them forward for council to consider, which is appropriate. But should the application continue in Urban Forestry's hands as a construction application, we could review in good faith and request in writing and as appropriately documented many of the items that she spoke about. Those could include various forms of documentation to substantiate the need to remove the tree to effect repairs to the walkway, for example. Our position at this point is that that's not necessary. the applicant would certainly have the ability to provide materials to us, which we could then assess and look at in more detail.
And are there accessibility issues on site? You're basically telling me, I think you haven't been on site, but this is what we're hearing here. And I'm very sensitive to accessibility. I think we all are, safety and accessibility. So could you just expand on that?
Sure. Thank you. I haven't been on site myself. My staff have been on site. The photos in the staff report are from urban forestry. My understanding is that the walkway is at this time very uneven, and I don't have any difficulty imagining that someone with mobility or accessibility issues, whether that's a small A accessibility or a big A accessibility, I don't imagine that those are real factors. I agree that those are real elements. However, the private tree bylaw includes no provisions that would allow us to consider those requests, those factors, whether the application is construction related or not. And as such, if that were the reason put forward, that might be something we would have to refuse, and the applicant could then push it to an appeal at community council, as is the case here.
My time is up. Thank you for your answers.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Any other questions for staff? Any speakers?
Go further ahead. We talked about this last time as a council. I don't know what to do with this. Obviously, I support trees. And want to make sure we maintain our tree canopy in Toronto. And what we're being told clearly this time, last time I don't think it was as clear, that it's a healthy tree. And I feel very sorry for Sandy. She's come here twice to Depute. And it's obviously causing her, problems, challenges, a headache. And there's accessibility issues and safety issues. So I'm not sure what to do with this. What I do know is I believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but I believe, given the pattern of Toronto City Council, no matter what we do here, Toronto City Council is probably going to save the tree, fight to save the tree. So it's a little bit of a catch-22 here, because if we voted to allow them to remove the tree, Toronto City Council would have final say, because it all ends up at City Council. And at City Council, I've never seen, in the last few years, I don't think I've seen anything not be saved from being removed. So based on that, I don't know really what to do, but I'm sure there's other speakers on this item. I don't know what, this is a tough one because I'm concerned what's happening on the property. And I can't go visit it. I wish I could go visit the property, but I can't in this current situation we're in. So usually I would go visit it and see it firsthand, but that's not happening.
You can't visit because of the current lockdown provisions, is that?
When it's something like this, I would go to the site and see it firsthand. What we're hearing from staff is that they have been there, but they haven't been there again since the last community council meeting. So,
do you want to?
We don't really have much. We don't really have much more information than we did, Mr. Chair, from last meeting, except that now they're clearly stating it's a completely healthy tree. That is being clearly stated by staff today. That wasn't so clear last meeting. So,
yeah,
I don't know. This is a very difficult one. I guess, we have to try to, council will override any decision we make here. So I guess we have to unfortunately deny the request. I don't know if my colleagues have any other ideas.
The only other thing I can suggest, it would be deferred, I guess, the second time, and the lockdown would be over, and you could go and visit the site if that's what you want to do. If you want to deal with it today, then it has to be put to a vote.
Yeah, you know what? I'm terribly immune suppressed, So even if the lockdown ends, for me, it doesn't end. I have to be extremely careful, unfortunately, for a little while. So I
Understood.
don't think I'm going to be able to do that. Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay.
I would love to do that. Trust me.
Understood. Okay. So, okay, so there's no recommendation from the local councillor, there's a recommendation from staff. Let's put it to a vote. Does anyone want to move the staff recommendation? Madam Vice Chair.
I think under our procedural bylaws, it not before us. If there are no other recommendations, is that the staff recommendation in the report not before us?
Yeah, so what's before us is an application, and you have to either approve or deny it. I'm just pulling up.
Well, no, there's actually only one recommendation. Is the recommendation in the report not automatically before us under our procedural bylaw is my question.
Well, I can have the clerk help me out, but those are the staff recommendations. If someone's moving the staff recommendations, we either support them or we don't.
I'm just verifying that. So
Yeah.
no one has to move it. It's before us.
So what would you like to do, Madam Vice Chair? Sorry? I can't hear you. Are you on mute?
I'm just asking if that's the case. Is it not the case that our procedural bylaw puts the staff recommendation before us, regardless of whether someone moves it or not? If that is the case, then recommendation 1 is before us and we can simply proceed to vote.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, for that advice. All those in favor? Opposed? Oh my gosh, that loses on a tie. Okay. I thought 3 and 3. So no decision was made. That goes up to council with no decision. I've been in this situation before, and council made no decision. There were 2 votes on it there, and they both lost on a tie. Okay, that concludes our business for today. We have the bills. We'll just put them on the screen. Madam Vice Chair, why don't I give you this task here?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, that the North York Community Council pass and declare as bylaws Bills 125 to 128, prepared for the March 1st, 2021 meeting number 22 of the Community Council.
Shall these be declared as bylaws? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Councillor Robinson?
North York Community Council passed and to declare as a bylaw a confirmatory bill to confirm the legislative proceedings of North York Community Council acting under delegated authority at meeting 22 on March 1st, 2021.
Shall these be declared as bylaws? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, that concludes our business for today. Thank you very much, councillors. Thank you very much, clerk and IT staff and members of the public.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
No, you're very welcome.
So let's get some good applications next meeting.
Yes,
Let's change the pace next time.
Yeah, no, we're very excited about new, better applications. Anyway, take care, everybody. Be safe. Enjoy the rest of the day.